Welcome to the Headmaster Table, where we demystify education with a signature blend of intelligence, humor, and motivation. Well, if today is your first time coming across a channel of this kind and you are interested in the content thereof, please kindly consider subscribing, not also forgetting to like and share this video so it gets to as many people as possible. That aside, I want to say a very big thank you to all my returning viewers. Stay tuned. Have you ever come across the quote, "Practice makes perfection"? I guess you have, because this is a long-age quote. Now, there seems to be a lot of truth in this very quote, but in reality, it is not always the case. Now, for practice to make perfect, it ought to be planned. The practice ought to be planned. What we see most teachers do is to be giving exercises randomly. Now, if practice is not planned, it will not yield the necessary perfection or skill that we are looking for. And the exercises that are supposed to provide the necessary practice are done randomly. And so then how do we develop that skill that we are looking for? And so practice needs to be planned. Well, teachers is not about just giving exercises randomly. Because of this, educators came with a particular technique or skill we call planned repetition. Repetition, they say, is the mother of all learning. If that is the case, then planned repetition is very important to consider. Well, what then is planned repetition? Planned repetition is a skill or a technique that helps students to overlearn the important aspects of whatever has been taught them by repeating it over and over and over. That is what we call planned repetition. Now, skills that goes beyond, or that calls for later performance goes beyond, initial mastery. What that means is that there's a need for the person to be practicing and then repeating the practice over and over in order to overlearn that particular skill. In other words, to perfect that particular skill. Most of the planned repetition has been used in the language subjects. But I want to say that it goes beyond the language subject. Of course, since we are saying repetition is the mother of all learning, then planned repetition cuts across all subjects. In fact, certain skills in performing art, dance, and whatever, or what have you, need this particular practice, planned repetition. It shouldn't surprise you to know that the difference between an expert and then a novice lies in planned repetition. Though planned repetition can be boring if care is not taken and monotonous and demotivate students, the students are to also note that it can help them, perform in any situation, novel situation or stressful situation, any situation of any kind, they will be able to perform. Their action will become sporadic and then automatic. Planned repetition it is. An expert typist will type, talk with you at the same time, and then will not look on the keyboard. Meanwhile, a novice typist will type letter for letter, looking on the keyboard, and may not be able to do anything. If he does, he will be confused. And like I said, the difference between them has to do with this very principle, the planned repetition. And so we'll be exploring the various dimensions of planned repetition. And by that, I want to say we'll be looking at the various types of repetition. Now, the first type of planned repetition we are talking about has to do with simple repetition. Now, this is where a word or a phrase or a concept is mentioned and then right after it is repeated. So the repetition of words or phrases or concepts right after it's mentioned is what we call simple repetition. And this happens during the reading of a test, or it happens in the reading subjects, where a teacher, in wanting children to master the various keywords, will mention the word and children will recite after them. So the teacher will say germination, children will say germination. This is a simple repetition. Now, the second type of planned repetition we are talking about is what we call spaced repetition. Now, spaced repetition is when a word, concept, or principle is said at certain appropriate times. In Ghana here, during the morning assembly, we sing the national anthem, we recite the national pledge every now and then. Even in our classrooms, we go and then recite the times table. This happens over and over at certain appropriate times. And so we call it a spaced repetition. The third type of repetition has to do with what we call cumulative repetition. And this is where in the course of the studies, the major points that have been mentioned will all be repeated once more. Now, in doing this, you are providing anchorage for the points that have already been mentioned, and then a base for those that are about to be mentioned. The fourth one has to do with mass repetition. This is where in the course of the lesson, all the points that have been marshaled out are mentioned one by one. In other words, it's done in like a summary form. And children in learning using this particular principle may want to set questions around all the points that have been mentioned. So they will be able to master those points. Well, all too soon we have come to the end of this video. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.